Welcome, brother. There we
How
are.
much did that cost? I don't know, brother.
That was the first round of a.
I don't know.
Oh,
I
why,
liked our other
why?
ones.
Yeah, well,
It
that's
didn't have
too
any of your.
bad.
It didn't have any of your signature stuff.
No, because it was the first round, and
Oh
I put
man,
it together. I put it together this afternoon, squeezing it in
it looks like
between
he's. It looks
different
like he's something you
things.
see on stupid defeat the press. Fake
Uh,
news. Not the real. Not the real
well,
deal.
I get you. I get you.
Where's our
It's just that it's the
Braveheart?
first round. Braveheart. Well, Braveheart would be something, but I wanted to make it a little bit more dramatic. Um, you
Where's
know,
your? Where's your? I think you're full of crap, John
yeah.
Heston. You're full of crap.
You know what, brother? I'll put that one. I'll put that one in there just for you next time.
Oh.
All right, just for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Brotherhood of Liberty. Obviously, from what you just saw, I hope you saw. This is episode 13 of season 2. We are the Brotherhood. I am Jim. The guy over there. See that? I'm doing it right. The guy over there is my brother. Yes, that is him. He is my older brother. Just for the record, he's my older brother.
Ancient older brother.
Ancient. Okay, well,
BP number. Well, actually, I'm BP number 3, right? Mom, mother, father, mother. I'm since I'm the first. I'm BP number 3. Your call sign is BP number what? 7. Your BP
he's
supposed to
older.
Patriot. Yeah.
He's older. All right. So anyway, let's today's topic. So we're gonna do some updates in a moment. We're then gonna slide into Don
You don't need
Lorenzo.
to tell anybody. We all saw the video already, so you just go
Yes,
do it.
yes.
Don Lorenzo.
And then
Just hit us with the
of
updates.
course, relax, brother, relax. He's always in such a rush, ladies and gentlemen.
I got 9
Always
kids.
such
All
a
right.
rush. Yeah, well, that explains a lot. It
there's
does explain
stuff.
a lot.
There's stuff that I gotta get done. I
Then we're
know
gonna be
it's
talking. Well,
it's
he's
9:20 at night
talking.
or
He wants
whatever,
me to
but
go fast, and then he talks. So then we're gonna have the China experts, and then we're gonna do Pugnology, part
part
two,
part
part
2.
two, part
Right.
two. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's start with our updates. Those of you who have children in the room might want to let them walk out right now. We have some breaking news from every single, or not every single, but a majority of the football games in college football
To be
in the
clear,
United
it
States.
started last week with 1. This week there was at least 4.
At
It's
least
growing.
4,
A
yes.
growing movement.
And here we go.
Talked about college football being back yesterday, and some universities had a different fight song than last season. Here's some examples.
Pretty much says it all, doesn't it, brother?
If they've lost to kids, the college kids,
Camp Randall Stadium and down the.
Yeah,
if they've lost to college kids, it's over.
Yeah,
It's over for the Dems.
Granted, the kids in the stadium are probably much more solid than some of the other individuals that you see on campus reform. I know I've seen it on campus reform. And I don't know where they find those kids. Some of those young people are just
I think
completely lost.
I think this is a wake up call. The Biden administration is a wake up call for the youths, as they would say. In a sense, it's the evil heel of government coming down, clamping down on their lives, not letting them go out and having to wear masks, not letting them go to school. They spent all last year within school, and I ran the numbers too. Now this is for just the kids under 17, but
Right.
while all these kids going into high school, I ran the numbers, and I think there was 12 deaths over a whole year. CDC just released their bullcrap numbers, but there are deaths. You can get statistics you can check. 12 deaths and 170 some hospitalizations. So when you put that, there's 73 million children in America. That means the death rate for your chances of dying if you're a child, like for one of my kids here in Pennsylvania, it's 1 out of 9 million. From dying from COVID. I think it's like 1 out of 4 million for being hospitalized for COVID if you're under 17. And to put that in perspective, my children have you have a like a 1 in 2 million chance of being eaten by a shark But because we are in Pennsylvania, a landlocked state, it goes up to a 1 in 7 million chance of being eaten by a shark in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So you have more chance of being eaten by a shark than you do in Pennsylvania than you do of actually, if you are a child under 17, getting COVID and actually getting hospitalized and die, according to last year's statistics. So I know they were saying a lot of crap about that, percentages, but when you look at it, that's what they mean by those statistics.
Right.
So the youths have been horribly, injured by this by the pandemic. They should blame the Chinese. And now that knucklehead over here has got no other course to try and to put the screws to the American people and the American economy, they're getting a firsthand witness to what it actually means that, like we always say, government is evil and getting more and more evil every day. So the youths are figuring it out.
Yeah. So the next update here, we have Joe Biden yelling at somebody about something, thanks to Getty Images. And you can really, this picture I put up there just so you could look at the person he thinks is his sister next to him.
He's actually yelling in that about certain people saying F and certain people. It's actually getting into his head now, because when he went up to 9/11 to the memorial, people were yelling it on the street. So you're not going to see the press reporting any of this, but yet you're going to see it out in the real world. It's now started a movement.
So John, you are saying that he is responding to someone dropping an F-bomb at him.
Well, signs that he says and people yelling out at him in the crowd, "Fuck you, Joe Biden." So he's responding now. He's going off script.
Which is
you're not going to hear about it, but
he's supposed to be the adult in the room. I thought this was is this not going to be reported?
He is the adult in Depends.
All right, thank you, brother. Over here, I just put this so you can see the whole group of losers in one
so sad
swoop. Yes, a whole group of losers, and I don't mean the people behind that first row. I mean the first row.
Yeah,
you see it right there. A group of
our kings
losers.
and queens.
Yes,
Aren't
the kings
they
and queens, the elite of the Democratic Party, the people who we can blame for all the troubles facing our country today.
These are the leaders of the elites. These are the best the elites can come up with. Just remember that, people. George Bush and Obama, a village idiot from Indonesia and a village idiot from Texas, are the best that the elite leadership of this country can come up with. Just want to remember that now. Just want to remember that.
And there's lots of money in that front. Yeah.
Because that's all it is for them.
Bushy's in Shanksville. He's not in this group. But here we have the Taliban holding Americans hostage at Afghanistan airport, John. Now, this one's a little old, but this is still out there. And there's still, this has been talked about. Psaki has been getting railed about from Ducey, and she's not giving any good response. John, we have Americans being held hostage. And this is connect with I want you to remember this. Take a picture of this. I want you to remember this because I'm going to be talking about this when it comes to China. So let's go to the next one. Here's Psaki herself. White House reveals that the reason why that their flights that carrying Afghans are being blocked is because they have the measles. The measles, John. We are testing for measles, but we're not checking for COVID. We have the border wide open. We're not checking for COVID or the measles or any other type of disease. We're just welcoming them in and shipping them out to red states. John, this is unconscionable. We have, whether you believe in the Afghanis coming here, I'm sure there are loyal Afghanis. They're also, John, you mentioned, what are they not doing? They're not vetting these people to see if they're going to be terrorists themselves, right? So it's very interesting that this is, she admits to it, she owns up to it, or she doesn't own up to it. They haven't owned up to anything.
Unfortunately, I didn't have time to get, but Al-Zawahiri is, allegedly Osama bin Laden's number 2. is resurfaced in the video. They still don't know whether, he does a lot to hide because he's hiding in Pakistan, I'm sure, where that idiot was hiding, and we allow that. But he resurfaced with a video, for the 9/11 anniversary. Egging on Al Qaeda. So now Al Qaeda is back. So after 20 years, a couple trillions of dollars, 7,000 lost American lives in 2 wars, 30, I think it's 30 plus thousand at home dead from drug overdose or PTSD or some nature, and a security state that is now focused on, quote, white supremacists, made up Democratic bullcrap. That's what we have to show for the last 20 years. Again, who are our elites now? Who are the best the elites could come up with? A village idiot from Texas and a village idiot from Indonesia. Just remember.
Exactly.
That's what they produced over the last 20 years.
So, John, here we have from PBS NewsHour.
I think that in these 20 years, just to add on to what David was just talking about, we've seen a lot of what I think of as one giant step forward and then 2 giant steps back. One giant step forward was the election of Barack Obama as president of the United States, first Black president. But a huge step back was the election of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Another huge step
Wait, John,
forward.
you know who that is,
20
right?
years is Donald Trump's fault.
John, you know who that is, right?
Oh, there he goes. Yeah.
We found him on PBS.
The election of Joe Biden
Brooks
as president of the United States.
Joe Biden being elected is one of those plus moments, like Barack Obama being elected. So electing a 78-year doddering old geriatric guy, white guy, who is part of their rebirth moments.
Step forward, marriage equality. But another huge step back, to my mind, one was the fact that even though Donald Trump lost election, he got 12 million more votes than he did in 2016. So it just highlights the divisions within the country. And then the ultimate step back, January 6th. My colleague Carlos Lozado said this morning on television that how ironic it is that on September 11th, there were reports that the plane that went down in Shanksville was headed to the Capitol, headed to crash into the Capitol. And yet at almost 20 years later, the Capitol was ransacked by domestic terrorists.
There you go.
Oh, there you are.
By domestic terrorists.
American citizens are domestic terrorists. The evil left.
There you go. But
the evil left.
I brought this up because of that. This is PBS, as well as I do, is a cornerstone of the left.
Time to defund those crap heads.
Brooks is another cornerstone of the left, even
neocon scumbag,
right? And so he's on board with this. He's okay in this clown too. This is just an example of what we are fighting against.
Yeah, it's time we bring back banishment. Good old Roman Empire, the worst thing you could do. And it was banish these idiots. These idiots need to be banished to not even the good parts of the world. Like, well, maybe we could banish them to Germany and places like that now because Muslim extremists are actually taking over those countries, and then they'll get a firsthand a look at what it is to have somebody's head cut off. Hopefully, one of theirs. As they import this nonsense. We got to bring back banishment.
We should have certain countries that we allow them to go to, right? Yeah, only because Romans used to be 800 miles. That's only to what is that? Only
that's not far enough, right?
Yeah, it's not.
Right.
Really
Let's banish them to Mexico. No, it's too nice. We have to banish them to a
Venezuela,
place where
Venezuela.
There you go. They can eat food out of the trash, just like the poor Venezuelan does, because that's a perfect example of their socialist, communist, scumbag hierarchies, which they all say they're so much better than what we have here in our evil capitalistic America. Okay, that's perfect. Venezuela,
Afghanistan might take him.
Yeah, they should, and he can wear the burqa.
Yeah. So this I brought up because I just want to remind everybody that. This person here, Kami Kamala, was very instrumental in helping this organization raise millions of dollars. And what ended up happening, and because of the George Floyd, what ended up happening is they bailed out George Howard, who the Examiner called a career criminal, on a domestic violence charge. 3 weeks later, Minneapolis police arrested Howard after he reportedly shot and killed a 38-year-old man following a road rage incident. So my point being, Kamala, her hands are all bloody, just like, not as bloody as Joe Biden's, although she is responsible for for a lot of bad things. She's definitely dirty on this. So then we have John. You know about the mask mandates, which we're going to mention right now. The guy who's sleeping in the White House thinks that he has the power to order us all to be wearing masks. He wants masks to be worn. I'm sorry, vaccines to be taken, and these vaccine mandates to be put in place. Any business that has more than 100 people must get the vaccine for everybody. And OSHA, he's getting the Labor Department, he's getting every federal arm. Getting back to your point before about the security, the government of security over the security state. This is not just a security state, John. It's also the state that is using now its power. It's exercising its ability to write the regulations to go after the small business. And I think that this is another breach of power.
Pugnando pro Dio part 3 for next week. We'll get into this and the right to consciousness and the development of it with, and I know somebody's going to groan right now, William Penn. But that's for next week. I got it. Before we get to our last segment, I got to clear some of the air with what we have to do for Pugnology tonight, then next week. But it actually is one of the fundamental bases of America, and his anti-Americanism in this, the idea that he can actually think that he can actually do this. But we're going to get more into it now, the development of the canons, because we've forgotten the faces of our fathers and the faces of the founding fathers, and there's a history that goes along with it. But we'll get to it. That actually part 3 for that next week. But development of the right to consciousness, and you're right to say, no, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm going to do what part of the freedom comes from, again, the words of Jesus Christ. But that's for part 3.
Yes. And the last thing for this is, Bush calls the children of the same foul spirit. George Bush compares January 6th to domestic extremists to Islamic terrorists in 9/11. Now, John, so once again, not only do we have to worry about PBS and the cornerstone of the left, I kind of expect it from them, right? You expect them to say stupid, ridiculous comments like this. You'd expect that from your leftist neighbors and friends, people you talk to, seeing it on Facebook. You expect it from them. But this guy is the one who was president at the time and should actually be aware just how bad the situation was on 9/11 and just how ruinous it was. And here is this clown. And since he's the one who kicked off 2 wars because of it, you would think that he would learn to keep his mouth shut. But John, he's just pandering to his new base, which is
it's always been his
collection,
base.
This collection of scumbags right here. That's his new base.
It's such a shame, James. He grew up in the Reagan White House. His father was Bush. He could have gone either way. He could have been another Reagan because he grew up in the Reagan White House, or he could have started the selling out of the American conservative movement, which is what the Bushes were and why we are in the mess we are today. If we'd gone ahead with the Reagan Revolution, God knows where we'd be today, right? China would be nothing. We wouldn't have a third world war coming. The world would be turned Christian. God knows. The Muslims would be down. Instead, he's just adding on to the knucklehead legacy that he furthered by invading the wrong country, not Iran, not kicking out the Saudis, not leveling the Saudis for what they did. Now we know why. He literally is a village idiot from Texas, and his best friend is a village idiot from Indonesia. You'll see them start doing tours just like that his knucklehead father did with Bill Clinton. You're going to see it. I guarantee you're going to start seeing that soon. That's the next thing you're going to see. And remember, these are the best. All these Jeff Bezos creeps and all these Epstein creeps and Weinstein and Hillary Clinton's. Remember, for all this elite class, all these people down in Washington who are so much smarter than all the rest of us, who want to tell us how to live our lives. Remember, when they were looking about for the smartest guys in the room for these so-called elites, it was George Bush and Obama. just again, it answers itself. Why are we letting these idiots tell us how to live our lives? No, enough. That's why it'll never work. But so are we ready for our Don Lorenzo?
Yes.
All right,
yes.
Don Lorenzo. So Larry Elder is now running on Tuesday. What's the Tuesday? The 14th is going to be the gubernatorial recall election in California. If 50% plus one vote to recall Newsom, then it would go to the winner of the people next. So potentially with 20% of the vote, you don't have to have anything more than that to be governor of California. So Larry Elder, is actually up and making a strong running in California. It's going to come up this Tuesday. Now there was an incident, but let me before I get there, let me set some of the stage. Of course, remember now California produced 6 million elections for Hillary Clinton and in the Hillary Clinton election, and then 11 million in the last election, because California, of course, is the forefront of the fake balloting, and they do where they just do all kinds of harvesting and every kind of trick that you can imagine. But Larry's got a shot, Don Lorenzo, as we lovingly call him, because of a couple things. He's got a shot because, number one, this might be another case of like they call it black on black crime. This might be another great case of Democrat on Democrat crime, where the people are so fed up. The other people in the Democratic Party are so fed up with the cabal of Nancy Pelosi, who's his aunt, and Newsom, ripping off the state of California to the tune of millions of dollars, that they just might want their share. And they look at it, and if Don Lorenzo wins on Tuesday, the election is only for a year, because by next November, it would be up for the regular term of governor again. So it's only going to be for a year. So it might be that this is a case of, just like the reason why the Democrat Party finally got rid of Cuomo in New York wasn't because of anything any Republicans did, wasn't because of anything of the sexual assaults that he was doing. That they okayed. They okayed it for a Biden. And Terry Reid. It was a case in New York, just like it was a case in New York. It was Democrat on Democrat crime, just like in California. This might be another case of Democrat on Democrat crime, where you don't get where they might want to get rid of him, so they get rid of him and put up with Larry for a year. Now the other way is, of course, is that Larry's earned this spot. He's a kid who grew up in South Central LA, black kid from not a privileged background, from like the little sissy Newsom, one of the best schools and all the rest of it. No, he worked his way from out of nowhere to be a lawyer, and he's a great lawyer. You listen to him, he puts all the facts out there, and then he comes to a conclusion. He's a devotee, of course, Thomas Sowell, the great black economist. It's amazing books. You ever want to read any books, go read Thomas Sowell's books. And he, if I said anything, I would say this guy, Don Lorenzo, he is literally like the Black Reagan. He is articulate and clean, as some idiot would say. But he's solid. Now, he's, of course, they hate him because he'll say things like, there's no, if there was systematic racism in America, fine, point it out. You'll make $1 million, because there isn't. He will point out that if you look in the education system, the Orientals, and that's what we're going to call them, they do the best, then come the whites, and then come the blacks and Hispanics. Why is that? Has nothing to do with systematic racism. Has to do with simple facts. For example, that Oriental kids do 12 hours of homework, white kids do 8 hours of homework, black and Hispanic kids do 3 or 4 hours of homework. As his father, Staff Sergeant Elder would say, hard work wins. And so that message, of course, is an anthem to the public school system out there in there, and to the evil Democrats who own the state. So this week, of course, there was an incident. And do you have anything from that? Did you get anything?
I do. See the gorilla mask coming up on the side there? Throws the egg.
Oh, unbelievable. Right. Unbelievable.
But then you watch the scene here. Watch the bald guy come up here. He physically threatens this guy. He's gonna. Then he gets whacked.
Yeah. These are the lovingly. You want to talk about white supremacists? This guy is in this white liberal girl is in a gorilla mask. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking? A guy lost his job because he just said the word gorilla, meaning like a combat maneuver, and it sounded like gorilla, meaning a gorilla, like the mask that she has on, when we're referring to Serena Williams, a style. Are you kidding me? Where is the left all over the place? If this was good old Stacey Abrams, as we call Stacey Abrams here, the mendacious Oprah, aka the fat Oprah, where was this? If this was done to her, where would the left be? They would be melting down about white supremacists for the next year. But of course they won't. And of course, it will be disappeared. But this gives us a little lesson. You're playing it again?
I'm playing it because you got to get to past that scene. Everyone cuts it out there. Is this, it's here. It's here. Listen to what's being said.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, they're using the N-word.
They're running for governor. For what? He has 1 year to do if he even wins. He can't do shit. He wouldn't be able to get nothing done. So why is he running? Democrats control everything. He couldn't get nothing done.
So that goes.
Well, we will see. But it does bring up this point. If you remember back to the Charlottesville, everybody says, "Oh, Biden's just a fool." Biden's been a mendacious liar his entire life. He's been a creep his entire life. He's never done a real work. He became a lawyer and went straight into government work. Never, he says he was a public defender. I doubt it. But he did nothing but steal from the government a dole and live off the government dole for his entire life. Always been a mendacious liar. And one of the things he did at Trump was, remember the Charlottesville? Some knuckleheads go off and they lie. Good old Biden lies and lies again about white supremacists and how Trump said that they the whites that some they were good people on both sides, meaning the white supremacists were good people. He's told that lie, and he's used it as the basis for him launching his campaign. And the way he did it was he used it like propaganda. So there's two things about this. You get to one of the lessons from the left is that they use this propaganda. They'll come up with a lie, and they'll keep saying it again and again and again until the fiction becomes the truth. That's, of course, is straight from the Nazi playbook, right? And that's exactly the National Socialists, and that's what we have today with the new American Socialists. They're doing the exact same thing. Well, all right, fine. I'm not saying we should use propaganda like that. I'm saying we should use the same principle. The other thing about that is, of course, the left is always projecting themselves, their evil, into everybody else. They are literally the white supremacists they keep talking about. Here is a perfect example. You got Governor Northam, appearing in a picture with blackface and a KKK clan guy, and his defense is, well, you don't know if it's me in the black face, meaning he's the guy in the Klan suit. He's admitting that he's the guy in the Klan suit. You got that creep up in Canada appearing in blackface like 17 times or something. You got good old Jimmy Kimmel, that unfunny moron at night, appearing in blackface. You got Joy Behar appearing in blackface. The white supremacists are the left and the Democrat Party because they've always been that. They are the KKK. The Democrats have always been the KKK. So what I'm saying is not to use propaganda, but these fools should be shouted down every single time they open their mouth. Every time some idiot from the New York Times wants to talk about racism, they should be going, well, wait a minute. You creeps didn't tell Newsom to step aside and let the first black governor, Larry Elder, be in there. You creeps didn't say anything when you were appearing in, when a white liberal woman was appearing in a gorilla mess. Screw you. You're the racist. You're the white supremacist. We should be calling the New York Times, CBS, and everybody who opens their mouth about race, the white supremacists, because they just proved it again when they haven't done anything else. We have to use the left tactic of them. In other words, make them eat their own Shiite. Make them eat the racism, because they are the racists. Now, to Don Lorenzo's credit, he did not throw out the race card. We're throwing out the race card. He said, "Listen, I don't know because he's a conservative. Because I don't know. Obviously, some maniac woman with some kind of mental problem came to an egg, and that's because he's a good Christian man and he's a good guy. I'm saying is what we should do though is that's fine for him, but we should we should definitely be using this as another chance to learn the lesson of what the left does and turn it on them, turn their racism on there, going, how dare you? Where were you when this maniac was showing with a gorilla face against the guy running for the first black governor? Are you kidding me? You want to say you're for black people? Why didn't you stand up about that? Why won't you stand up and say anything about that? And make them eat their own racism. And that would be so that then we could shut them up the way they keep try to shut up Trump, and you can move on so that Larry Elder, people like that, can actually express their opinions and prove the points that he makes. Because let's face it, as Maggie Thatcher, the great Maggie Thatcher, said, the facts of life are conservative. Eventually, my line is life yields to reason. Eventually, if you keep your eyes open, you will become naturally conservative because you see all this nonsense. Whether you're black, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Oriental, whether you're white, no matter what, that's the secret of the conservative movement that Dippy George Bush never got, and that Ronald Reagan was so confident about, and so confident again about the black Ronald Reagan, Don Lorenzo, or as his father, Staff Sergeant Elder, used to say, hard work wins. And that's our segment on Don Lorenzo.
Very good, brother. Very good. So that's. I'd also like to point out that type of what you're talking about, how to fight against the New York Times and such. That's also how we should be fighting against critical race theory. We should be it's basically telling the truth. What you're saying is we just have to tell the truth, and the truth is the same when it comes to this critical race theory. So it's an excellent point, brother. Good job. Thank you for that. Clearing it up. We want Larry Elder, by the way, to crush it and to have victory. So we're hoping that happens. That election is next week, correct, brother?
No, it's Tuesday.
Tuesday. All right. This week then. Okay. All right.
We'll
yeah, we'll know for the next show.
Well, maybe we won't now, but who knows?
We can assume that the Democrats don't have a very big fraud, of election stealing in California because they have such a predominant power base.
They do. That's 6 million to 11 million. But like I said, it might be Democrat on Democrat crime, and he gets in. And once he gets in, maybe people will listen to him, and then they'll hear the facts of life.
So the next segment is China. Now, I want to pull you back to about 3 weeks ago when we were discussing when things started to fall apart in Afghanistan, and I started talking about why Afghanistan was important and why China was concerned about America being there or not being there, and our influence in the region, in essence. And so, John, once again, we have, Ballistic Patriot has been ahead of the thinking of everyone, including the experts. So what we're going to go through today, China in Focus is Epoch Times news hour, and they do a great job usually. And we've talked about that. We've brought their stuff onto the channel before, and I've talked about it. But I want to talk about the China expert in the room here, right here, brother. You're talking to the China expert. I consider myself an expert now. Why? Because, well, everything I said, and if you remember what I said was that China is concerned because Afghanistan is right there on the border with the Uyghurs province. There's also the belt, the road that runs through that connects the Mideast to China proper, runs right through that province that the Uyghurs are living in. That the Muslim community in that area, which would be Afghanistan, Pakistan, oh boy, we got a little background there going on. Sorry. The entire piece of that puzzle, it all ties together, and China is now looking to exploit that piece, and they're trying to now protect themselves by shoring up their relations with Afghanistan. They're hoping that they can pull the Taliban back, because there's been a number, as we reported, a number of attacks on different parts of Afghanistan. I'm sorry, of this road that they're building through Pakistan, which, by the way, is vital if they want to, just as a refresher, if China wants to be able to get oil and power its country and get foodstuffs from the Mideast, that electricity, that oil from the Mideast to China. If they go to war with the United States, we can shut it down in an afternoon. We can make sure they never get another tanker truck coming through, and that'll be the end of the power grid within China. However, this bridge or this road will create a vital vein. They'll have pipelines running directly from Middle East right into China itself, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Afghanistan is so vital to the Chinese, because there's that little squidge of territory that juts right into China that is part of Afghanistan. And I just gotta say, it really doesn't matter, because Taliban are such mountain fighters; they can crawl all over that place, and the border is such a who knows where the border is unless you have a real GPS on you, which none of them do. Um, they have really no idea where the border is, and they don't care. The other side is they don't care, and it's very hard to enforce the borders out there. So the Taliban can sneak into China and sneak out of China, which is another reason why the Chinese don't like the United States government on the end. Because if the Taliban can do it, John, you know who else can do it? U.S. Special Forces. So that is all on the horizon. So let's talk about. Here's the proof. Ready? Here's the proof.
Welcome, Antonio. Thank you so much for joining us today. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Tiffany.
So with the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, some are noting major players are now trying to step in, for instance, the Chinese Communist Party. Some also know that China has a similar Belt and Road Initiative deal with Pakistan, and that could play into Afghanistan. But what's your take?
Main involvement of China with Afghanistan is to protect its investments that it has in Pakistan, because Pakistan, or CPEC, which is the Chinese-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is the jewel of the Belt and Road. It's kind of the most important point of the Belt and Road, because it would allow China to have direct access to the oil from the Middle East, bypassing the sea, bypassing the United States Navy. They'd be able to go overland through Pakistan. And
so I just wanted to point out, I also wanted to drive this home, that which he doesn't talk about during this interview, and we won't watch any more of it, but because I don't want to get hit with copyright issues. But I do want to point out that what he doesn't mention, what is being ignored by a lot of the so-called experts, is that the Pakistan and Afghanistan and China are not the only countries that are in that region. Also, India is in that region, and India is a major player with the only population large enough to to build a military the size to match China. But more importantly, because we have with our weapon systems, it's a 3 to 4, 5 to 6 to 1 ratio of superiority that we have. But the idea is India has a border with China. India is a major player in that region. And India, as we reported, I think it was 2 weeks ago, John, is responsible for assisting in shutting down this road that we were talking about that I had up in our previous show that I didn't put up in this one because I didn't want to be redundant and because I didn't have time to get it up either. But we have this idea that China is threatened on that border. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it is China's Achilles heel. They know that they cannot match us ship to ship in Navy. Once we get out of the Taiwan Strait, we cannot. They can't match us because they have so many missiles in that region. They can match us. They can go. They can go toe to toe. They think they can sink our carriers. But you get us outside there into the South China Sea, into any other part in between the Indian Ocean. We know we can shut down any of their shipping. We know they can shut it down without any problem. And as a second thought, that's how thoroughly we can shut it down. So they need this road, and the only real way to shut down this road and this pipeline is either to bomb it, which means invading Pakistan, or go violating its airspace, sending in special forces and blowing it up, or getting the Indian Army in there to go and shut it down. Which means, John, what Biden should be doing is working out a deal with India, like Trump was doing. Now, one of the things that is discussed in this interview that is one of the leverage pieces. The leverage is the Taliban want recognition. They want international recognition. And the suspicion is that China is going to give it to them. Now, there's a lot of good reasons, but a lot of bad reasons why China might do it. China might do it because a friend is a friend, and later on, when you want Afghanistan to help you, maybe you want the Taliban to be your friend later on. The Taliban are friends of nobody, so it's kind of like an empty promise. But there's really no major benefit other than getting in the front door and getting access to a lot of the stuff that China wants, like the American technology left behind, like the rare earth minerals that are in Afghanistan. A lot of those things, they want to get a piece of that action, and also the Taliban's let's all be friends attitude, even though we're killing other Muslims called the Uyghurs in our country. That's another big plus. So they want that. But I would recommend, and I haven't heard this anywhere, that if Biden wants to make sure that the Taliban are never seen by the Chinese as being recognized, is that if, say, Biden calls up and says to Xi Jinping, that's how you say his name, right?
Yeah.
If you get him to do that, then you call him up and you say, "Listen, you recognize the Taliban. We're going to recognize Taiwan." And that'll shut down any debate on it. China will definitely not recognize the Taliban. They will not see them as the government, which they're really not, because reports are very clear that there's a lot of there's no way that the Taliban are in control of the entire country. There's a lot of people who don't want to be controlled by the Taliban. Let's be clear about that. And a lot of people who are still fighting against them in the back reaches of the country. So I just want to make that clear, that that's a simple thing. I make the call now that we should recognize Taiwan. Not only recognize Taiwan, but we should also recognize the independence movement of Hong Kong and come out and start defending those people. But John, I am convinced of one thing, that will never happen under Sleepy Joe and Bloody Hands Joe. It'll never happen. Here's why: because he's going to cut a deal with the Taiwan that with the Taliban, that he's going to recognize the Taliban if they let those Americans go, if they play nice with Americans, because Joe just doesn't know how to play anything except the Chinese tune. John, I'm deeply distressed. We'll never see him stand up to China, because if you look underneath Biden's lip, you'll see property of China. And
His mask or his lip?
His lip. It's tattooed in there. It's tattooed property of China. Why? Because he's been bought and paid for because of his son and his family's indiscretions. So I don't want to take too long. I want to give you some time. I'm going to end.
James. Now that you're an expert, do you get an office in Washington?
No, I am not your usual expert. I am still sitting in my living room. I guess this is
your studio. Your studio. Would you get an office? Would you get a office in Washington if they told you had to give up the hat?
No, you know what I would have to say no. I'll still work from home.
Right.
I'll do long distance working, John.
You're the only expert with a hat like that. So
yeah, that's also that too. Yes.
Well, you were right. So
I was right. I nailed it, and I know I nailed what we should be doing against China right now, which is building the alliances that Trump was building, and also pushing back fiercely. Joe Biden is sucking up to the Chinese. He's not. I know that he's pushed a couple things, but those are smoke screens. They're not that as important. There's no intellectual property protection. That's fallen to the side. There's no protection of the businesses that are aligning itself or getting into China. There's no protection financially for those companies because they're going to be married to China. There's no way you can get their money out of China once you put it into China, by the way. There's no way you can have your industry, any type of Chinese company that buys an American company, then gets all the American secrets that company has. There's no check and balance on this. There's no stopping it. And I mean, your kids' TikToks are being, every TikTok that they create, every time they use it, all the bioinformation is being given. And worst of all, your DNA is being bought by the Chinese so they can put it into a large database and track everything, every generation. And we know that they're really good at building bioweapons because that's what COVID is. And so they're going to build a bioweapon that targets your DNA. Just keep that in mind. It is on the horizon. And there's very little we can do about it with this administration. So, brother, you wanted pugs.
Yes. Pugnando pro Dio, fighting for God, because we don't call it apologists because the apologists would all be mad. So we could just sit here and watch this because I love doggy videos. This is so cute. Look at the baby pug. So cute. Oh, it's nothing cute. I just can sit here and watch all it. So anyway, so Pugnando pro Dio. So it's a sort of apologetic thing, but it's like we want to show. We're going to show, connect the dots. If I can connect the dots of Jesus Christ's words to where we are today in our society, then I have scientifically proven the existence of the historical existence of the resurrection. So remember last week I introduced the concept from the Pharisees, Gamaliel. From Acts, we know that right after the resurrection, the apostles were running around Jerusalem saying, "Hey, Jesus is back. Jesus is risen." And eventually, they got beaten. They got locked up. And the Pharisees dragged him in front of him and "We told you to stop saying this." And one of the Pharisees stood up, Gamaliel, and said, "Listen." They pointed out that this had been going on a couple times, that they've had a couple of people who, as Gamaliel had said, you thought they were somebody, thought they were something, get up there, get a bunch of followers, but then they would be executed, the followers would disperse, and that would be the end of it. So he makes the point of, if these people are just from the works of men, then it will have the same effect. But if it was from God, if the apostles were from God, and if Jesus was from God, then you will not be able to stop them, and it'll be just as if you were fighting against God. Hence our Pugnando pro Dio. So the words of Jesus today that we're going to relate to where we are today in our society are Jesus's incident with the coin, with Caesar's coin, where a bunch of the Pharisees got together and they challenged this was variously as the Pharisees, Herodians, were spies of the chief priests, challenged Caesar, challenged Jesus with should we pay the question? Should we pay taxes to Caesar? So now remember, just a little sidestep. If you want the scientific method that we're employing here, because we are sons and daughters of ballistic patriot number one there. Science is basically this. It's one of two things. Show me the math or show me the experiment. The famous incident, of course, is electromagnetism and Faraday. Faraday was a great experimentist, didn't have the math behind him, but he could come up with the experiments that showed the relationship that was always repeatable between magnetism and electricity. Maxwell will come along and say, oh, look, I know what that is. Those are relationships. Those are mathematical relationships. And then he had the math. A reverse of that would be Einstein and his general theory of relativity, where he didn't have a big enough experiment, but he could show you the math. It took him to 1919 and a famous experiment he did where he could show the bending of the light around the sun to predict, to show that using the whole world, using the sun as his laboratory, proving his math. So it's either one or the other. It's math or the experiments, and that's what science is, not stupid models and global warming nonsense. But that's what math is. And so our math in this case would be the experiments, that if we can show this experiment happening in the laboratory of the states or in the laboratory of the Christian societies and in societies where they don't have it, then you can see the effect of those words. It will be just as Gamaliel had said, that it must be from God, because these words would have had no effect. So these words, so back to the incident, and Caesar's words were render unto Caesar what are Caesar's, render unto God what is God's. That's how his response. So the Pharisees were trying to trap him. If he'd said, yes, we pay taxes to the Romans, well, then they would have him for violating Jewish law. If he said, no, don't pay taxes to the Romans, well, then they would have been able to turn him in then for treason. And they thought they had him. But Jesus said something that on the face of it, nobody can complain about. If Caesar, who thought he was a god, had heard that, and the Romans had heard that, we'll go, well, that's obviously perfectly good. We own everything. And yet it fooled the chief priest, because it appeared that he wasn't violating sacred Jewish law either, in the sense that he said, that you could take it in the broader sense that Caesar only gets the coin. And that's the genius, the super genius, beyond human genius of his words. He's basically saying all Caesar gets is this stupid coin with his face on it. That's the only thing he has. All the rest of it is God's, meaning his. And these words resounded throughout the 2,000 years we have today. And here's how. In the 1600s, this came to fore. Now, it came to fore in a couple ways. On the face of it, it was a battle over property and what is Caesar's and what is not, that went out throughout the 1600s. The side effect of a side issue of that would be the right to consciousness, the right to self-determination, the right to freedom of speech, and the right to freedom of religion, which we'll use next time. But these words sparked a huge debate around the 1600s. If we're going back in history, James the First, James the Sixth, sixth of Scotland, first of England, took over after Elizabeth, and this is the great Jacobean phase of English history, where Shakespeare wrote his works. And the King James Bible was written. Now, most people think the King James Bible is attributed to King James. This is that King James, but he was an evil tyrant. He was a jerk. He wrote the King James Bible because he was mad that there was an English Bible written by the Calvinists in Geneva, the Geneva Bible, which was actually the Bible the Founding Fathers used, that had some footnotes in it that were disrespectful. He thought were disrespectful to the English crown because of his. I'm going to tell you in a second, but that he was so ticked off about these footnotes that he commissioned the King James version of the Bible, which we now unfortunately use or think is used as our Bible. And a lot of people do. No, you're better off with the Geneva one, and you're better off with the American Catholic, with the Catholic, the English Catholic one, than you are with the actual King James Bible. But anyway, the reason why he was so ticked off is because if he had one work it was his it was the truce. So he lived around 1625 is when he finally died, and that's beginning of the 1600s, which started this period. He wrote the true law of free monarchies. He took that phrase from Jesus, render unto Caesar's phrase, and twisted it into the belief in his book of the absolute right of monarchy, the absolute right of the king. He looked at it as a part of a secession from the apostles, just like the Catholic Church, looked at the secession of the apostles for their authority. He did it for the rights of kings, and that's why the king's motto today, the English motto today is God and my rights. He looked at it as if he owned everybody and everything in England, and so what he did was to try and to keep his extravagant life go up, is keep raising taxes. This sparked a series of wars and revolts in England that would result in his son Charles II getting his head chopped off, getting Cromwell and the Parliament defeating the king's forces. Would then have the Protectorate, would then have Cromwell as dictator, would then have the restoration of James II and Charles II, would then result in 1688 with the Glorious Revolution. This whole period, though, was a battle over how much power and taxes the king had. Now, you could argue that, well, okay, you're just replacing one tyrant for a lot of little tyrants, and that's what Parliament was at that time, but that's fine. The idea was to check the king's power and to power to tax and raise money through taxes and doing whatever he wanted. And because of that, it created a stability in 1670, 1688, that then you would see a rise in GDP of the average person. See, if you look back, it wasn't the industrial, as we were all in history book, we were told that it was the Industrial Revolution and the spinning that created this great material success that started the great material success. It wasn't. It was the ending of the idea that the monarchy could do whatever it wants and raise taxes against Parliament that started from like 1670, 1680. You see a straight rise. You see a hockey stick, if you would, of the rise in GDP that would result in this huge benefit we have today from this battle over what those words mean. Now, today we're just starting with the idea of property, the power of taxes, the power to take property away. And that's why from this time period, from the 1600s, you get William Penn, you get Locke, you get the early statements of life, liberty, and jury. It was like liberty, life, and property. Life, liberty, and property. And Jefferson's original, it would translate in the 1700s. It would metastasize in America. This freedom movement would for property would result in Jefferson saying the original Declaration, where where Jefferson had said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they're endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It was originally life, liberty, and property for the 200 years preceding from this battle of the 1600s. And then property got broadened into pursuit of happiness. And so property was at the core of the debate that eventually was won out, that eventually resulted in the British Revolution, the Parliament Revolution, in the American Revolution, and in the great material prosperity as we have today. So Jesus's point was that all Caesar gets, all the king gets, is his stupid face. If you take that word, his render unto Caesar's, out of our history and the 2,000 years of it, what you take out is the battle over the king versus parliament and the parliamentary revolution. You lose the American Revolution, you lose the Industrial Revolution, you lose the idea that you are king in your own house. You lose the idea that you have property. Now, if we're looking at the laboratory of states today, Europe is a fake America. It's the European Union is a fake America. It's not America. In Europe, I remember hearing one person says, "You own nothing." The aristocrats own everything. So the evil parliament, it's one, instead of one tyrant, it's a bunch of tyrants. But the aristocrats own everything. You might own your suit. Yeah, as this one guy said, you might own your suit, you might own your watch. Everything else you rent from the aristocrats, right? So the aristocrats own everything. But in America, where you have property rights, those property rights translate into freedom this way. In China, perfect example, you have 1 billion Chinese with almost the same language and almost definitely the same ethnic background, and obviously more geniuses. How come the Chinese aren't the ones leading in all of intellectualism and inventing everything? Well, for a really good reason. They don't have any property. If you invent something in China, it's immediately stolen by the bigger force. And so the idea that you have property that no government can take away from you is the cornerstone of one of the cornerstones of American freedom, that allows somebody to come up with an idea, an experiment, or a mechanism that then it's called intellectual property, or a copyright, or a trademark, that then they can or a patent they can translate into untold success. Apple, all the rest of it. So that concept of the reduced king, of the reduced Caesar, has resulted in this great, both from the statistics of the great GDP growth and GDP throughout from the 1600s to this material society we have today, to the idea of the reduced government. Next week, we'll get into the ideas of freedom of speech and freedom of conscience and the consequences from that battle also. But the point being is a scientific historical proof that from the laboratories and from the development of the history of Jesus's words. If it was from man, those words would not have succeeded at all, and they would have died and disappeared from history. But because they were from God, they resounded through history and developed. And it's actually, you can go back early to 1200s and the banking industry and the monasteries and stuff. But I don't have time for that. so we're just going to stick with the 1600s for this one, and this fighting for God, and pointing out that if you take out those words, you lose it all. You lose the revolution against the king. You lose the American Revolution. You lose the Industrial Revolution. You lose the house that you live in. You lose your car. You lose everything except for maybe the clothes on your back. And most importantly, you lose your soul, because then the king thinks he owns you. And how did that really work out? I mean, Prince Andrew, really, the English people are still bowing to that Prince Andrew creep and all the rest of them, or is, in other words, as we heard earlier, we started the show with, you could say, F Joe Biden also render on the season what is Caesar's. And so that's our Pugnando Pro Dio for today. And all that time we got to see Pugs. So at least you were watching something useful, if not listening to what I had to say.
All right, brother.
I love the Pugs.
Love
Pugnology, part 2.
So that's our show for the evening. Anything else you want to add, brother, before we head out?
What's our catchword?
Oh, well, first of all,
wait, I'll do it. It's all good.
Because God loves you. But we got to say, like and subscribe our channel. Make sure you tell your friends about us. We have a good number of people out there who are interested. Our page on Facebook is getting a lot of attention. We do appreciate that. Let's keep that going. Spread the word. Let people know that the real deal is here and that we're fighting back, and we need you to help fight back. We can't do it alone. But the best way you can do that is by sharing and liking our stuff and getting it out there so your friends can hear it. And, when we talk, we're not just speaking for ourselves. We're speaking for all of you out there who are frustrated and tired with what's been going on in this administration and everything that's been put on us for the last 40 years, how we've been suckered into thinking that the government is something that can help us when we really know that it's been really an obstacle. As Reagan said, the worst thing somebody can say to you is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." So
no, you're not.
Yeah, that's the worst
You're
thing.
not going to help.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to help. So we know that, and please let's pass that message on. God loves you, brother. Wait. It's all good
because God loves you.
Because God loves you.
Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your bed many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?